Wow, what a difference. The Talkbuster Podcast. Hi, I'm Chris Chipman. You may remember me from such podcasts as the Chipman Brothers Tangent and Creating Geeks, a parenting podcast of great responsibility. I'm here to bring you back to the late 90s, early 2000s, a time of Amrays and clamshells, a time of late fees and VHS tapes being replaced by DVDs, a time of stale gumballs and overpriced candy. Yes, that's right. I am talking about the time of Blockbuster Video, the Walmart of the video rental industry, the mom-and-pop video store killer, the corporate big choice video store that everybody loved to hate. Blockbuster is mostly gone now. Kids today will never know the crazy Friday and Saturday nights with lines wrapped around the store to rent the next big movie. No more will regulars who are in the know arrive at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays to snatch up the new rentals that week before the weekend rush. Most of all, no longer will young movie geeks like myself have the memories I, and many others like me, made while working there. You see, under all of the corporate evil and bad practices, Blockbuster was a home, a comfort, a place where I made lifelong friends and even met my wife. It is because of these memories that I, and I'm sure many of you, have, that the Talkbuster Podcast was created. A place for me and others to share our memories of what once was, of the before time, of the long, long ago. I'm looking forward to see where this goes, how it evolves. Join me, won't you?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Talkbuster Podcast. As always, this is the Chippa, Chris Chipman, the host of the Talkbuster Podcast, the only internet show where you hear me talk to random people and friends and family about working at Blockbuster Video. As always, I want to point you guys in the direction of my Patreon. For the $15 tier folks, I like to say their name live on this show just to make them happy. Those people are Mason, Christopher Finnick, my mother, Patricia Chipman, and Hugh K. Campbell Jr., who goes by Green Goblin on Twitter and was a guest on this show back in the early days of the podcast, which in about a half an hour turns 1 year old. 6/11/2018 was the very first episode of the Talkbuster Podcast, and exciting things to come. Right now, I'm going to leave a blank spot for the ad read, so this show is brought to you by...
My name is Gebetto Funkin, One Shoe Stumble, Knackle Timber Shivers, at your service. I'm looking for some friends of mine. The Many Pennies?
The Many Pennies. Them.
I know we've been really busy, but I think that all we need to do is just tackle the next thing on this 24-item to-do list, and we'll be fine.
Someone bring me some food. Also, my flask is empty. I need a refill.
Nobody panic. I may have lost several scorpions. I said nobody panic.
Check out this new skin patch on my cloak, guys. Guys?
You know, I might be looking for someone else.
I don't blame you. Adventure Incorporated, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play adventure podcast. New episodes every Monday. Find us at adventureincpod.com.
And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for the evening. Introduce yourself, good sir.
Yeah, this is Brett Cline. I'm the random dude tonight.
The random dude, as opposed to all of those other random dudes.
That's right.
That sounds mischievous or illegal. Anyway, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
So I'm from Texas. I grew up in Houston, went to school at the University of Texas, and then moved to Dallas when I graduated.
Very cool. And was there a lot of video stores out in that area at the time? Like, what kind of drove you to ending up with Blockbuster?
So it was actually my brother got a job at the Blockbuster down the street, and I was working at a grocery store, and it was a lot of hard work, a lot of heavy boxes, and I decided, you know what, this is not for me. And so I checked with my brother to see if they were hiring, and sure enough they were. So just started, got an interview and started working there.
And when was that?
That was back in the summer of '89.
Oh, so they're 4 years in, right at the beginning.
Oh, yes.
And was which store was that? Was that in the Dallas or Houston area, you said? Or?
That was down in Houston. That was at the Champion store. It was pretty busy location.
Cool. And how long did you... What was that? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, we even rented laser discs.
Oh, that's awesome. I was talking... I don't know if you've ever heard of Scarecrow Video. Have you heard of them before?
I have not.
So Scarecrow Video is I had a guy, Matt Lynch, on this show a few episodes ago who works for Scarecrow Video, and they I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it was 2013 or 2014, became a nonprofit. They are now the World Cinematic Physical Media Archive. And they're government backed, or at least they're not government backed, but they're privately funded by people like PBS, nonprofit type deal, and they have 140,000 copies of physical media on VHS, Laserdisc, Blu-ray, DVD, and they have stuff that even the National Archive doesn't have, which is really cool. They're in Seattle, and I would love to check them out sometime, especially, working through what you and I have worked. It's like, oh, that would be just an awesome place to check out, and just holding those cover boxes, right, man? That's all part of it. So what how long were you at the store level, and where did you move up to? Tell me the story of Blockbuster.
You want my CV? So
Sure.
So I started out just part-time CSR when I was in Houston, and then when I was in school in Austin, I worked at a couple of locations there. Then when I graduated, I got a call from the zone financial manager with Blockbuster in Dallas, and I got my degree in finance, and so he needed someone to fill in for his assistant who was on maternity leave. So I worked for about 3 months at the zone office. So I got to meet with the zone VP, and I'm trying to remember his name. I think his last name was George, but I don't remember what his first name was. But anyway, so I got to see a lot of the big picture kind of view of how the operations ran from the zone level. So I think at the time there were 4 zones in the country. So there was probably about 1,000 stores in our zone. And so, getting to see the big picture, the forest when I was working in the trees. So
right.
It was an interesting way to see how things worked at that level.
Oh, that's really cool. So, how long were you you said it was 3 months or 3 years?
Yeah, I was there for 3 months at the zone office. And then I went back to working in the stores. I was an assistant manager for about 2 years, and then became a store manager. And I was a store manager, probably about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Yeah.
So, when did you, obviously we can jump back and forth here. So where did that bring you to year-wise? Were you still at the company when the corporate downturn started in the early 2010s? Yeah.
Yeah, originally I left Blockbuster as a store manager at the end of 2005.
Okay.
And then I came back just to work part-time, just for the fun of it. I want to say it was 2011, and then I left again in 2013.
You were there longer than me. I started in late 2000, early 2001, and that store I worked at till about 2003, 2004. They traded a full-time assistant store manager for a part-time CSR because my old store manager from Salem got moved to a store to help fix it up. It wasn't doing very well. The staff was kind of hit or miss and moving around, and the store kind of got a little bit messy. So he wanted to get some of his staff over there. So I went over, and then I worked for a long time over there. I ended up becoming the store manager. That was in Woburn, Massachusetts. And I ended up becoming the store manager there. That was the regional office for the area.
Okay.
So they had a downstairs where we did all our training and everything. So it was fun to work, or interesting and fun to work every day, where all the district managers and everybody were, coming up to grab a soda, everything while we're working. Right. That was really cool.
Yep.
But then I left there to go back to school. Basically, I became the store manager, and then decided, okay, my junior year is about to start, and then ended up coming back and working as a CSR at the Swampscott, Massachusetts, which is right on the coast here near Lynn, store, and worked till about 2009.
Nice.
So it was awesome. Like I said, it's a shorter period of time than and I'm sure you can attest to it, right? You think back on all the memories and stuff you make there, and it's like, man, I feel like I was there a lot longer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and what was interesting about my career is, I had a lot of unique experiences. When I was working, the first store that I worked at when I was an assistant manager, one night I was closing, and then the store manager, I was an assistant, so I was closing the store, and then the store manager was coming in to do inventory with a couple of the CSRs. And we had a guy come in and he robbed us at gunpoint.
Oh,
And
man.
yeah, it was fun. And so I was the one that was behind the counter, and the CSRs were out, straightening the shelves, putting up movies, whatever. I had two CSRs on duty with me that night. And so the guy came up to me and demanded the money. So, of course, I opened the register. I was like, have at it. And so, as soon as he left, I'm on the phone with the cops, and then I'm calling the store manager and telling him what happened. So he comes in probably half an hour later, and he told this two CSRs, he's like, you guys can go ahead and go. It was a traumatic evening, so you guys go ahead and go. And then he asked me to stay and do inventory. I was like, I'm the guy that got held up.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so I ended up staying and doing inventory. It was crazy.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's
Like
uncomfortable.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
And then,
I had one like that. We had the fire extinguisher, the chemical fire extinguisher go off in the drop box. Like a
nice.
video just hit it wrong. Doused the whole store. Just dust and sand or whatever everywhere. And corporate was like, yeah, you guys need to stay open. We're like, wait a minute, what? Are you serious?
For any reason.
Anyway, sorry, you were gonna say? I love the stories. Let's keep them going.
Yeah, so then this is kind of a tragic story. This is how I got the blimp ride, by the way. So
okay.
So about, I don't know, 3 months after the robbery, my district manager comes to me, and I don't know if you know this story about the first shooting murder at a Blockbuster store.
No.
But this happened at a store in Dallas. There was an assistant manager and a CSR on duty, and it was closing time. And they had just locked the doors, and somebody came to the door, needing to use the phone or something. I'm not sure what ruse he used, but I think he said he needed to use the phone. So unfortunately, they let him in, and he pulled out a gun and took the CSR back to the office where the assistant manager was, counting the money and everything. Well, I don't think he had the money out at the time, but anyway, the robber demanded that he open the safe, and I don't know what happened exactly. It wasn't made clear to me, but something agitated the robber, and he ended up shooting the assistant manager and then shooting the CSR.
I think I did hear about this. I think Dave Carrera, who was on my last episode, mentioned this. Like that was one of his reasons for moving corporate, was to get out of the stores because of that, because he was at Dallas.
Yeah. So anyway, so then the district manager comes to me, and that store wasn't even in our district, but somehow the district lines got redrawn. And less than a week after the shooting, the district manager came to my store and asked me if I would go over there and be an assistant manager at that location.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I told him I would. And so I went, I drove by the store it was on a Saturday, and I was supposed to start on Monday afternoon. So I drove by the store just to see where it was, because I had no idea where it was. And so I drove by, and there's all these flowers and candles and cards and stuff by the front door. And I'm like, oh man, what have I got myself into? So then I went back on Monday to start working there. And and I kid you not, as I'm walking in and going to the office to talk to the store manager, they are carrying out one of the file cabinets, the candy cabinets, and it had a bullet hole in it. And I was like, oh my
Jesus.
God. Yeah. So I started working there, and we had, so the Dallas region had, they hired off-duty officers to work in the evenings because of this incident. And it was like the CSRs were like scared. I mean, if it started to get dark and the off-duty officer hadn't shown up by then, they were like, we're not going to stay. And so I had to get on the phone and be like, hey, we're the reason why we have these off-duty officers. So, this store should be the first one every night to get one. And so that it was a real challenge. I mean, just when your employees are afraid to come to work, I mean, that is a challenge.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, we had quite a few that left because of what happened, and I don't blame them. I mean, geez, for what they were getting paid and all that, I was like, I understand if you want to do something else. But so then I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months later, because this happened around Easter time, and I think during the summer. The Blockbuster Blimp was headquartered in Fort Lauderdale, where the corporate office was at the time.
Yep.
And they were flying across the country to California to cover some event. I don't know what it was, but they were going to fly across country, and so they stopped in Dallas because we're kind of halfway, and so they were offering rides to store employees, and because of what had happened at my store, they asked us first, if we wanted to do that. And so one of the CSRs and I got to go on the blimp. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, like you said, it has a tragic beginning. It's cool you got to go on the blimp.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of bittersweet, I guess.
Yeah. But wow, yeah. Never had any times where I guess we were afraid to be working. The store in the city I live in Lynn was a pretty rough store. They got robbed a lot, but no one ever got hurt, thankfully, that I remember. We had someone set our trash can on fire, not like put a cigarette butt out in it, but like deliberately did it. That was weird.
Yeah.
But
I mean, riding the blimp was cool. It was smaller than I thought it would be. Like the gondola part of it, where you ride, was smaller than I thought it would be. It was basically a little bit larger than the interior of a 4-door car. Basically, there was bucket seats up front for the pilot and co-pilot, and then the back was like a bench seat where 3 people could sit, and then the door to get in and out was kind of wide because they had to bring in like camera equipment and stuff when they were, at games doing the blimp stuff for the games. But yeah, it was very loud. I remember that we had to wear headsets so we could hear each other, kind of like if you're on a helicopter. But it was pretty neat. We got to go over Arlington, where Six Flags is, and got to the Rangers' new ballpark had just opened, so we flew over the ballpark and got to check it out. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, it sounds it. Definitely don't know one around here that got to go on the blimp. That's for sure.
I got a pin for it, but I don't know where the pin is. I lost it years ago.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, if you have any stuff around that you want to take photos of and send to me, I can share it with the episode when it goes up. People love that stuff.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I've got I'll have to dig around, but I think I've got a few pieces of memorabilia. I have a Carl and Ray somewhere.
Nice, dude. I have the gumball machine from the store I worked in,
Yeah.
And we bought it when they closed in 2013. My brother bought it for me, and it still had the Carlin Ray themed gumballs in it that I put in the year 2000.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, they're doing great.
Hard as a rock, I bet.
Yeah, that's a fun piece of memorabilia, though. I love that gumball machine.
Yeah. So I just jotted some notes down of things.
Yeah, of course.
Talk about,
and like I told you, it's your show, man. Take this in whatever direction you want. I just like to, I like to talk to people. I love sharing our nostalgia. It's great that now this will be recorded somewhere and people won't have to forget it all.
Right. This is heading straight to the Smithsonian, I can tell.
Oh yeah. No, they pay me big bucks for this. No.
That's right. As well they should. So I was also, when I became a store manager, an opportunity came up. I was working in the first store that I was a manager of was in Louisville, Texas, which is a suburb that's it's on the north side, kind of between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I'd opened that store, and I was a store manager there for, I want to say like 6 or 8 months. But my boss came to me and said that there was they were going to be doing a new concept. And so, I was all in for that. And so basically there was a super Walmart that was in Denton, Texas, and they were going to put a Blockbuster video inside of the Walmart. Oh. And yeah, so it was the first ever in-store Blockbuster. And so, I jumped at that opportunity. That sounded like a lot of fun. And so it was weird because it was kind of like making it up as you go. I mean, we were trying to figure out, because it was a small space. It was probably, I don't know, it was maybe 1,500 square feet, maybe. So it was kind of a small space, and trying to figure out what merchandise we were going to put in and how much and how it was all going to work was a really interesting, figuring that out. And I got to work with people from different departments, because corporate I think at that time, I'm trying to remember if corporate had moved yet or not.
Right, because they moved to Fort Lauderdale, right?
I'm sorry?
They moved to Fort Lauderdale, correct?
Well,
at some point.
From Fort Lauderdale back to Dallas.
Right.
To when that was. I don't guess it had moved yet. But there were people that had flown in from corporate that wanted to, check it out, merchandising, marketing people. They just wanted to see how it was all going to work out. And so it was neat to get to work with those folks. And then we had franchise owners that would come from all over the world, because this was kind of like a cheap Blockbuster, because it was a small footprint, and it was inside of a larger store. So the rent was a lot cheaper. The overhead was a lot cheaper, just because of the way it was configured. And so getting to work with those franchise folks too, they would come in and check it out. So unfortunately, it started out really busy, and then it just kind of died. So I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that, but it got really slow. And so I moved on to another store. But we did have a drop box that was out in the middle of the parking lot. So every morning I would take one of the shopping carts and go out to the drop box and fill the shopping cart with all the movies that have been dropped off. So.
Is there more? I don't think there's a more corporate America vision than a person in a Blockbuster uniform pushing around a Walmart carriage full of Blockbuster tapes into a Walmart. Right. Yeah. That's hysterical.
Yeah,
I'm actually really surprised this didn't take off.
Well, and they did expand it. I know in the Dallas market, we partnered with some grocery stores. There was like a Kroger's, that we partnered. There were actually, I think there were like 3 Kroger stores. I don't know if you're familiar with Kroger's in the
Yep.
Northeast.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't
Yeah.
have them, but I know what it is.
Yeah. So there were, I think, 3 or 4 Kroger stores that we put Blockbuster stores inside of, and those were even smaller than the Walmart one. But they did okay, but they weren't. I don't think they performed as well as they had hoped. And this was probably mid '90s.
Okay.
I want to say it was mid '90s when they were doing this.
And was
Um,
that back in the time period where they were also like they had the Blockbuster entertainment or music stores as well? Because I remember by the time I got there, those were kind of all gone.
Yeah, I think the music stores were like early to mid '90s.
Yeah.
I don't know that they had them in Dallas. Actually, I'm trying to think if they did. I know we bought out Sound Warehouse, and there were some Sound Warehouse stores, but I don't think they rebranded those as Blockbuster stores, Blockbuster Music. But I know there were some in Houston, but I don't think there were any in Dallas.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that was a really unique experience.
That's extremely unique. I don't think I had ever heard that until you mentioned it tonight.
Yep.
Because I
And
know
then-
they kept trying to split our stores, like back in around the time where I won't say the downturn started, but the mid 2000s where they were starting to try to branch out. We had
Yeah,
this.
they had Radio Shacks where
Yep.
it was like a
Yep.
Blockbuster / Radio Shack, and then they had I know the region office in Dallas. They had I think it was like a Papa John's
Yep.
that they put in. So like part of I guess they sublet to Papa John's or something. I don't know, but yeah, they were trying to get partners in so they can increase the foot traffic.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But unfortunately, technology ruins the
Yes.
day. So, and then the other really cool opportunity that I had was being the store manager of the world headquarters store in downtown Dallas. That was when corporate moved to downtown Dallas from Fort Lauderdale, and that was, I want to say, '98 maybe.
That
Like
sounds about right.
But yeah, a friend of mine, somebody that I had worked with before, was the original store manager there, and then she got a job upstairs in corporate. So this Blockbuster store was in the lobby of a skyscraper that was the world headquarters for Blockbuster. So Blockbuster had floors 21 through 32, and the CEO's office was on the 32nd floor. But when I took over the store, the very first day that I was there, I had to go up to the CEO's office because his assistant was in charge of the parking passes for the parking garage. And so Blockbuster fortunately paid for my parking pass because the garage that I parked in downtown Dallas was like $13 a day.
Jeez.
Yeah, and this was back in '98, '99. So yeah, it was pretty pricey, but fortunately they paid for my monthly pass, so that worked out well. But yeah, I mean, working in the corporate headquarters store was just amazing because I got to work with people from all different departments. Whenever they were going to roll out something new, they would ask me, okay, so how would this work in the store? If we change this, is that going to make life easier? Is it going to make it harder? So I got to I had some input in several different programs that they were rolling out. So I don't know if you remember Project Store.
I do.
Okay. Yeah. So I got to work with a lot of people on Project Store, which was really neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But one of the coolest things about that store is because it was downtown and basically most of our customers were people that worked in the office buildings downtown. We were open from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening. And it was Monday,
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
and it was Monday through Friday. So we weren't open on the weekends.
Wait a minute. So the corporate store, the main one in the building,
Yep.
where the Blockbuster building, got to have weekends off.
Oh, yes.
You know, I am so jealous right now.
I know.
I always liked that outlook. Well, you don't have to get time and a half on Sundays because you have the opportunity to work more days.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
This is your privilege.
Right. You get to work on Sunday. Yeah. So, that was really interesting. And we did so many different, because that store was kind of more of a PR thing really than it was an actual like money making endeavor, because they used that store like the CEO was John Antioco at the time. Mr. Taco Bell.
Yes, indeed.
And like he would do, like if they were doing interviews with him for magazines, TV, newspapers, they would do the interviews in my store. So it would be like in the middle of the day, one of his assistants would call down and say, hey, they're going to be doing an interview with John Antioco in your store. Can you, make sure everything's ready for him? And I was like, okay, how much time do I have? And they're like, oh, you got half an hour. So I was like, all right, well, great. Thanks for the warning. So, but yeah, there were times when we actually closed the store in the middle of the day so they could do interviews with him. So that was pretty interesting. And I did a couple of interviews for, I'm trying to remember, there was one of the local news stations in Dallas. Their studios were right across the street from our building, and so they would come in and shoot like B-roll film. So whenever they did a story about Blockbuster, which was quite often because our headquarters was right there in Dallas, they would show B-roll of me working in the store, which was interesting. I'd have customers come in and say, "Hey, we saw you on the news last night." And I was like, "Really?"
That's awesome.
Because it was video that they shot like 2 years before, So I was like, I had no idea.
This stuff still has to exist somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
I found some database. Yeah.
Yeah, Fox 4 News in Dallas. I'm sure they've still got it somewhere in their archives.
Yeah, I found some cool database a while ago of people that had just uploaded old VHS recordings of Blockbuster commercials.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
I know, right? Wow, what a difference.
Wow, what a difference.
Indeed. But yeah, that was
dude, this is fascinating. I this is blowing me away. Like you've been everywhere.
Oh yes. What else was cool is that I got to open VIP accounts for celebrities. So like our PR department would call down and they like, hey, so-and-so needs, we need to set up a VIP account for so-and-so. Some of these people, I had no idea who they were because they were like either investors in Blockbuster or just friends of high-ranking, corporate types. But there were a few that I knew pretty well. So one of them, I don't know if you remember this story, but Tom Cruise was in England in the UK, and I don't know if he was filming something or if he was just on vacation there or what, but there was an incident at a Blockbuster store in the UK that they wouldn't rent him
I remember
because he didn't have ID or something like that. So the next day I get a call from one of the PR folks and they said, you need to set up a VIP account for Tom Cruise. And I was like, all right. So so I set up his account and then they sent, I don't know if they sent a card to him, a membership card or what, but Yeah, I got that call the very next day, and I was like, I know what this is about. So,
Tom Cruise never wants to be questioned again in a blockbuster.
right. Yeah. And that VIP membership, he gets all his rentals for free forever and ever. Amen. Or until Blockbuster shuts down,
Of
which will
course.
never happen.
No, how could it ever? I mean,
No, it's the world's largest video rental chain. It's larger than its next six competitors combined.
it was so wild how busy we used to be.
Oh yeah. Great.
How unbelievably busy.
Well, I remember when I was a CSR starting out at that store in Houston, that I would be on the register from four, like on a Friday or Saturday, from like 4 o'clock until 10 o'clock, and I would not leave the register because I
Yeah.
had a customer in front of me all 6 hours. I mean, there was always, a line. It was insane.
It was
And to
absolute
think,
chaos.
yeah, and to think it could go from that to not being in existence in, what that was 89 and 2009, so 20 years or whatever, 30 years,
Yeah.
20 years. Yeah, so yeah, that was really interesting. Another one, I got a call from PR because they wanted Jennifer Lopez taken off of Ben Affleck's account. That was right after they broke up. They're like, yeah, you might want to take her off that account. I was like, okay.
Now that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Was it Blockbuster's PR that did it? That made the
Yeah,
call?
but I think they must have gotten called by somebody in Affleck's camp.
That's so
Like,
funny.
yeah, you need to take her off the account. Like, all right.
Oh, that's because that's my biggest concern. Oh shit, she might use my Blockbuster card.
Right. She'll rent like 30 copies of Geely and never return them.
30 copies of Geely and distribute them throughout the world to remind people
that movie actually existed.
Oh no, not Geely.
Yeah. And you started in 2000 with Blockbuster?
Yes, I did.
So you missed Titanic.
I missed being an employee for Titanic.
Yeah.
But my friends who are all a little bit older than me, who I ended up so Blockbuster was like my hangout, and I feel like that sounds sadder now than it did then. Because these are all my friends. My wedding party was all people I used to work at this store with, and so I was like 16. My brother worked for this Blockbuster that I ended up working for. So on a Friday night, I'd drive up there and, hang out for a half hour or so, watch something on DirecTV, and then go and pick up a few movies. And, sometimes I'd go there later and they'd get off work.
DirecTV or Dish?
DirecTV. We had DirecTV that Blockbuster sold until Dish bought them.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. That's right.
I always found that super ironic.
Yeah, that was weird. I remember going to the meeting where they were kicking off that we were going to be selling DirecTV, and one of the because I was a smart aleck, but one of the district managers that was doing the presentation or whatever, he asked, so what are the advantages of having DirecTV and being able to, view movies on demand? And I raised my hand. I said, you don't have to go to the Blockbuster store. And everybody was like, oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's the beginning of the end when you start selling the competition at your store.
Yep. It's very weird. Right.
Yep.
And yeah, so I was a customer when Titanic came out at the end of '98 on video, or was that back still when things took 2 years to come out? I can never remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the release date was on that, and I don't recall. I thought maybe it was in the summer, but I'm not sure.
But I was there for it because the store manager got like a captain's hat, and everything. And I think they did like a midnight release for it, if I'm not mistaken, around here, which is a weird.
Yeah. Yeah. We did not do the midnight because I was at the corporate store when that came out, so we did not do a midnight release because only the homeless people were around at midnight, and I don't think they wanted to buy that movie. But yeah, we sold. I mean, that was probably the single busiest day at that store. We sold like 300 copies the very first day. It was nuts. And I remember because we only had two registers because it was a small store, but we had two registers and we had lines like most of the day. And I remember at some point during the day, John Antioco stuck his head in the door and asked me how things were going. And I'm like, busy. And that was pretty much all I said. But yeah, it was crazy. And corporate, they did kind of a big thing for it. We had, so our store was on the street level of the lobby, but there was also a downstairs lobby. And so in the downstairs lobby, they had a string quartet and they had ice sculptures of the ship. So they kind of had a party down there. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it was really cool. I got to go down there briefly when it died
So
down.
whoa. I just took that all in. They had ice sculptures to
Of the-
celebrate the release of Titanic.
Exactly.
That is hysterical.
I don't know who came up with that, but that was a great idea.
It's brilliant. Dude, so it was August 31st, 1999 was the video release of Titanic. So it was actually 2 years before that came out on video. That's nuts.
Yeah, that was a great. So after I worked for Blockbuster, just to kind of throw this in, but after I worked at Blockbuster,
of course.
I went to work for Borders Books because there's not enough stores for me to wreck and bankrupt. So I thought, hey, Blockbuster's going down. I could see the writing on the wall, and I was like, well, I'll go to Borders Books because what could happen with a bookstore. And of course, Borders Books.
Womp. And that's another place that just seemed like it was going to be around forever. I loved that store.
Yep. And I was at Blockbuster when Titanic was released, which was the biggest movie release probably in the history of Blockbuster. And then I was at Borders Books when the last Harry Potter book came out. And that was insane. That was just I was working at the store I was working at was in Uptown Dallas, and it was a 2-level store, Borders Books, and we had probably over 1,000 people in the store that night, and I mean it was just insane. It was the craziest thing, but it was cool being a part of both of those.
Yeah, right? That's it. It seems, when you're there, like it's never gonna end. Like what else? Where's society gonna go? This is like a pinnacle, and then looking back on it, it's like I can barely remember it. It's just the entire. Everybody just shifted. Even going to a movie theater now doesn't have the same kind of electricity it used to have.
Yeah.
For like a big movie release, it used to be like I remember waiting in line to see The Phantom Menace in 1999, and there hasn't been a movie since then where the opening day crowd felt that way. There's been theatrical experiences where it's like I've been in the theater and people just get excited, but. There's just something about the crowd. There's something about everybody kind of almost like zombie-like always being there for stuff. Like the fact that people could never get it through their head that if they just came in on a Thursday, they could and just keep it for an extra day, pay that late fee, right? And come in on Thursday, you're going to get that movie we had 250 copies of. But on Friday, it's not going to happen.
Right. But wait, it's guaranteed to be there.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, the rain checks.
The rain checks.
Oy.
And then I loved it. Then there was Movie Pass. That was fun.
Yeah.
And people really liked that up this way. Like, it took it. Some people got annoyed by I didn't realize I was signing up for a subscription, and it's like, really, like,
we've got you now.
And we're never going to let you go. What do you mean I have to put a credit card on my account? Exactly.
You got to do the mwahaha laugh.
Oh, man. So So you had quite a time at Blockbuster. Those are some of the most unique stories I've heard from people yet on here. And I mean, you got to work with John Antioco.
Yep. I had
when
lunch
was-
with I don't know if you remember Mike Romer.
Oh
but
yeah.
he was the president of domestic operations, so he basically had like 6,000 stores that he was in charge of.
I think I met him.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I met him during one of the big rollouts of something. He came around to like one store in each district. I remember that.
Yeah, so he invited me. He and I, you know, I'd see him all the time around the building, and he took me out to lunch one time just to, you know, talk to me or just ask me about, you know, what the feelings were like in the store. And you know, I was pretty honest with him about, because this was mid 2000s. This was shortly before I left, and actually shortly before he left too. But you know, just I remember telling him, I said, and this was probably 2000. I want to say this was like 2004, 2003, 2004. But I remember telling him, I was like, you know, in 10 years, or, you know, we'll be talking about how we used to have to go to video stores to rent movies.
Oh yeah.
Because at that time, that's when, you know, streaming started happening, and the main issue was, you know, compression and delivery speed, to be able to watch the movies without, you know, buffering and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, it was just a matter of figuring that out before, you know, that was going to be a reality. And so I remember at that time there were streaming services that were starting. And so it was just a matter of time before they got it worked out, and then, you know, we weren't going to need to be around.
Yeah, I remember getting the issue of Video Store Magazine or whatever they called it. Was that what it was? I think that's what it was.
Magazine.
And it had the red box on the cover.
Oh yeah.
And it said, "Is this the end?" And I went, "Yeah." And that was
Hey,
about
actually,
like 2008.
Because Blockbuster did have some of those vending machine type
They
setups
did.
on college campuses. I think there were a few college campuses where they had those, and they actually talked about putting one out in front of my store. And when I was at the corporate office, and I was like, "You can put it in front of my store as long as I get the revenue from it." I was like, "I'm not going to lose money because you put a vending machine in front of my store. That's not going to work." The concept of the vending machines, I mean, it was something, again, that, you know, Blockbuster had thought about doing but never really committed to. And I think that was part of the problem all along, is that, you know, I remember going to one of the fourth quarter meetings, and John Antioco and Mike Romer were both there. And we were, I had actually, they did like kind of an open question session, and I had talked to a couple of the people that I was friends with in the online department, and so they wanted me to ask him, you know, what kind of investment we were going to be making in online. And this was probably 2001, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they were asking, because they you know, their budget wasn't very much, and you know, they were wanting to know what kind of investment Blockbuster was going to make in online. And so I actually was able to ask the question of John Antioco, and he said that they were playing it by ear, that they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen. And I think that was, you know, we missed out on buying Netflix. And I think a lot of it was just kind of this cautious wait and see. I mean, and part of it, I think too, was arrogance. You know,
Of course.
we're bigger than the next 6 competitors combined. You know, we've got this huge market share. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And this Netflix thing, you know, it sounds kind of gimmicky, and I don't know if that we want to go do all of this. So let's let them kind of pave the way. And if it's successful, then we'll just copy their
Business model.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it was just too little, too late. And once Netflix made their name, it was kind of hard to catch up. And then the other thing too is they didn't have the overhead that Blockbuster did. I mean, you have 6,000 stores that are paying rent,
Right.
and you've got all these employees, and it's just that's too much overhead, and you can't be we were too big to be flexible and nimble enough to switch from overnight from having all these stores to being online only. So it was difficult.
Exactly. There's a do you know when was Antioco out? He was what until I can't even remember. Was it the late 2000s? I just can't remember how long.
Yeah, I think
stuck
he
around.
was. I want to say he was there when I left in 2005.
That sounds about right.
But I don't know how much longer. I actually, when I was working at Borders, and it was actually after he was ousted, and I don't know how long after. It was like maybe just a few months. But I saw him at the Borders bookstore that I worked at because he had an apartment that was in the uptown neighborhood where the store was that I was working. And I actually saw him there, and I was like stunned that he was there. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I asked him, what his plans were, and he's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm probably going to take some time off and just kind of sit back." And I was like, "Okay."
There's an interesting quote I read recently, or less than a quote, more of an exchange, and I don't know how much truth there is to it from Antioco's side, but it came from Reed Hastings, the Netflix CEO, who had said that he was basically laughed out of the room by Antioco and Blockbuster when he pitched for them to, go in, as partners with him in the company and basically buy it, combine forces.
Yeah, I heard that story too. Yeah.
But the part that I really loved was when Blockbuster Online came out, their version of Netflix. Reed Hastings said in an interview, Blockbuster is throwing everything but the kitchen sink at us to try to compete. And John Antioco actually mailed him a kitchen sink.
Kitchen sink, yeah. I remember
that.
Yes,
is genius.
Yes, that was good. Well, he was a very down to earth guy. I mean, whenever I saw him, he was always wearing, like one time I saw him come to work wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I mean, he had a very strict no tie policy. So unless the corporate employee was meeting with like an outside vendor or something like that, they didn't wear ties in the office.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the only times that I saw him wearing suits was when he was going to court.
Yeah.
Because when we got sued for the whole late fee thing.
Oh yeah.
That was in Dallas District Court, and so he would be wearing his suit when he was going to court.
I remember when we got the had to have the big store meeting to go over exactly what we were supposed to say to people when they asked us about that.
Extended viewing fees.
Yes, the restocking and extended viewing fee.
Yeah.
We actually, as a joke, with some of our more frequent customers that would get the joke, we made a late fee chance cube. And we had this one customer who was a former employee who we rolled at one time. It said, "Your late fees are valid." Did the Jedi mind trick thing. And he goes, "I'm a Dridarian. Your silly Jedi tricks don't work on me. And my store manager came over and pushed me out of the way and went, "Late fees removed." And walked away. And I was like, "All right, that's awesome." We had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was just the best job. I mean, just talking to people about movies. I mean, my gosh, that was the best.
And that was something I think, if it trickled down, and now that I'm kind of honing in on the years, then the Antioco was really in control was kind of my favorite years at the company. And, talking to other people that kind of delved into the corporate side or worked closer to it than, us on the coast out here, where it really sounds like, whether the business model was, behind the times or not, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
They down that, yeah, okay, so it was a retail job, and of course retail jobs aren't going to pay great, and of course, this is, but it felt like we were working in a niche store, but on a worldwide scale, right?
yeah,
Like it
yeah. I
felt
mean, it
like
was because
it felt
you'd
like the
see
company. Go ahead.
you'd see the regulars every Tuesday when the new releases came out, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was just your local, like you said, hangout. I mean, people would come in every week, and all your regulars, and you knew them well, and yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun.
So I'll let you in on a secret because it's starting to become more real, and so I'll say it on this show, and you can
I
be
was
one of
gonna
the
say
first
you're
people
saying
to
it
hear
on
it.
the show, so it can't be that much
Well,
of a secret.
well, I'm letting you in. You're I think the first guest I've had that I've told about this. Because tomorrow night I'm meeting with a venue to discuss my first ever live taping of an episode of this. I'm gonna have most of my original staff from the Salem store in Salem, Massachusetts, on board to do a panel style version of this at a club in downtown Salem, a little like rock club type place, a nice and intimate, small type of thing. And the idea is come see your crew because my buddy Tim, who's going to be one of the guys on the panel, still gets on the bus and people will go, "Oh, you're the Blockbuster guy."
That's
You know what
awesome.
I mean? So I think this has a potential to be a really cool thing, and if it gets legs, I plan to do more because, maybe people will be interested. I don't know. It's just a personal passion project kind of thing for me, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just that nostalgic feeling about Blockbuster. I think whenever you bring up Blockbuster to anybody, I mean, there's positive feelings about it. It's just, and a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, I miss those days of going to the video store," but of course, they don't miss them that much because we're not around anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think society is getting to a point now where, going outside of your home is like a crazy thing to do. But I mean, I go to the grocery store and I see all these online shopping carts where the store employees are filling online orders, and then people drive up to the store, don't get out of their car because the groceries are delivered right to their car. But yeah, I mean, there's that sense of community and that I think is lost because people don't. I mean, there's of course the bars and that kind of thing, but you know, there's fewer and fewer reasons to go out and meet with people. And I think, the local Blockbuster store was one of those places where you could go in there and see all your neighbors and stuff because they're all there too. So,
Right, they're all there, and like I said, it's like a zombie type effect. Like we all just had to be there. It's like
oh
I
yeah,
don't even know what's coming out this week. I just know I have to be there. You
right.
know.
That's
Um,
and browsing the shelves. I mean, it was just, and when you talk to people who used to work for Blockbuster and you've been on that remembering the blue and gold site,
oh, I
but I
love
mean,
that.
everybody talks about how that was the best job they ever had.
And
And
like I
I'm
said,
just,
I only worked there for like 7 or 8 years, and we still every time we get together, no matter what the conversation ends up about Blockbuster.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I really think it's one of those just, nostalgic places that, when people think about it, it brings back positive feelings. And I don't know, it's just one of those like a bygone era.
And I don't know if you've got a chance to hear the episodes yet, but I've got 3 episodes of this with the employees of the last Blockbuster in the world out there in Bend,
Wow.
Oregon, and
Yeah.
it's incredible to talk to them because, like I say, I did this show for the nostalgia, so you and I could have a conversation like this
Right.
about something we miss, and they're living it still.
Yeah.
And Sandy, who runs the store, has been doing it since 2000. It's not like she's new to this, right? Like it's incredible.
It's like a time capsule, you know.
It
It's like
is.
you're going back in time when you visit that place.
And it doesn't sound like they're going anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
she doesn't have any corporate entity backing her up with signage or movies to put on the shelves. She goes around to all the local Best Buys and places and buys their movies and turns them into rental copies.
Yep.
You know, but she says, like when Bumblebee came out, I think they said they had 130 copies.
Jeez.
Like that doesn't sound like a store that's not doing well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like they're still getting it done. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But
So
it's sad there's only one left.
it is sad, and it happened so quick, right? It went from like 10 to 1 in like a 9-month period.
Yep.
That's kind of nuts. I mean, when you think about what did they say? It used to be a new Blockbuster opened every 19 minutes for like a good 4-year period.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, I mean, when I first, I'm in Colorado now, but when I first moved to Dallas after I got out of school, and when I first, after working in the zone office and then going back to the stores, in the Dallas area at that time, and this was 1990, I guess this was 93. I mean, as an assistant manager, I got all kinds of overtime because I would be helping open stores, and it was like we were opening stores left and right. I mean, at one time there was an intersection in Dallas. It was a really busy intersection, but there was a Blockbuster store on one side of the street and a Blockbuster store on the other side of the street.
Just like Starbucks.
Yeah, they were on 2 of the 4 corners of that intersection. It was crazy. I was like, you could see the one Blockbuster from the other. It was just.
So did you ever have situations where one would be out and the other one wouldn't be, so you'd like run across the street for people?
Well, I didn't work at that store, but I'm sure
there were wild.
I'm sure there were times they were on the phone with each other saying, "Hey, you got any copies of this? Okay, I'm going to send some people."
Also, out of every Blockbuster, that has to be probably the most incorrect Dropbox drops. Gotta be, right? Well, come on, you guys are right across the street from each other. I mean, it was bad enough we got come on, Lynn's only 1 town away. Why can't I drop this here?
Yeah, I wonder if they were the same store code or if they had 2 different store codes.
I would hope they did it but again, they didn't have a way to link the inventories, I don't think.
Yeah. They would have to do, I don't know how that would work. So I guess they would have had to been 2 different store codes. But yeah, I'm sure they would run across the street like 3 times a day returning movies that were put in the wrong.
That must have been an inventory nightmare.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But at least they were busy. That's a cool thing to hear, man.
But the main store, because there was one that had been there for a long time that actually helped open. That was the main store, and then the one across the street was kind of a smaller version. But The main store was one of those where there was a bunch of different like pilot programs that they were trying out, and one of them was continuous inventory, where every movie had an RFID tag. And so like when you did the FOS report,
yep,
there was like continuous inventory. So like it would be scanning for those RFID tags, and it would know what's there and what's not. And so the FOS report was like automatic. It would know whether the movie was there or not. Of course, you'd have to still find the movie. It was somewhere in the store, but you knew it was there. So
that's
that was
super cool.
Yeah, that was something that they tested out, but I think it was probably too expensive to do. But yeah, I mean, you would just your inventory was done several times a day by the scanners. So yeah, you didn't have to do like monthly inventories because you knew exactly what was in the store at any given time.
Continuous inventory would have been awesome. I could see it. It's probably either too expensive, or I would almost guarantee that would have needed some sort of overhaul on the actual operating system they were running on. That just sounds like something that would bog it down.
Yeah. Yeah, especially those old systems that we're using. Jeez.
They're still using them.
Yeah,
Ben,
I mean,
they were telling me they when the corporates went down, they kind of compiled all the old systems into one main location and started distributing them out to the franchises to just have as backups.
wow,
And so she has them all now.
that's
She said
awesome.
she's got a storage room with just full. Just if a cash register breaks, I don't have time to call an IT person. Here, I'm just going to swap it out. Here we go.
And I mean, I remember originally that store codes were just a number and a letter or two letters. It was like the first store that I worked at was instead of like a 5-digit store number, it was 7Z.
Oh
That was
wow.
7Z was the store code. So yeah, way back when, and then they changed it to the 5-digit
Yeah.
store codes.
I worked at 25032 and 25026 and 25069 and 25038.
Yeah, when I can't remember all the ones I worked at. I know 48479 was the corporate headquarters store.
That's so nuts. I so what did the corporate headquarters store look like? Like did it look like a regular Blockbuster or was it fancy?
No, it wasn't really. I mean, it was kind of fancy in that it was like in the corner of the building, so we had all the big windows and everything that was from the building, and then we had like 25-foot ceilings, something like that.
Damn.
And then what was really cool was above because the ceilings were so high, above where the movie shelves ended, there was a big gap between there and the ceiling. So they put in all of these like movie posters in these really cool plexiglass frames. And so all along the walls were these movie posters. I'm trying to remember what all they were. I know Breakfast at Tiffany's was one,
Yep.
Gone with the Wind. But the coolest one, and the one that I want, because I was there when that store shut down. I was the one that closed it down. And we had like an original Star Wars poster, and I wanted it so bad. And I talked to the facilities manager and everything, and the one of the signage people, and I was like, I want that poster. I mean, I had been the manager of that store off and on for like 8 years.
Right.
And so I was like, if anybody gets that poster, it should be me. And unfortunately, the regional manager confiscated it and put it in his office.
Ugh.
I know it was the one with Luke Skywalker holding the
Yep.
lightsaber, and Princess Leia at his feet and all this stuff. I mean, it was just so cool, and it was an original because I mean they spent big time money. At one point, they thought about using part of the store for like memorabilia, like really nice, expensive
Yeah,
memorabilia.
like the Warner Brothers store and the Disney store do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I liked
Exactly.
that.
They wanted to put in display cases and all that, but I don't know. I don't know why they didn't. But
That would have been cool.
yeah, it would have been. Would have been really neat. But I remember I want to say it was on the 32nd floor. I'm not sure, but they had a private screening room in the corporate headquarters building. I think they spent like $250,000 on it. And I mean, it's just like this theater room. And I know there were a couple of movies that were filmed in Dallas, and they would actually show the dailies, like the director and I don't know who else, but they would screen the dailies from their shoots in that screening room.
Oh, so
But
that's awesome too.
yeah, it was really cool because I knew one of the guys that one of the facility guys that had access to the room. And so one time we went up there and he showed Phantom Menace He showed the pod racing scene, and that was so cool. It was so cool because the sound system and everything, it was just amazing. And there were like these plush recliner chairs and all this stuff. It was a really neat place. But yeah, we snuck in there and he showed it to me, and I was like, this is incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool place.
Dude, this is awesome. So I am getting to the point where I'm incredibly tired.
It's
but
only quarter till 1 there.
yes. But this has been awesome, dude. I want to ask you, do you have anything you haven't mentioned yet, or just some memory, whether it's a memory of like something that you and the crew did or a movie release, or just any like closing thought that you want to leave people with before we move on to the wrap up game?
So, did you ever see the movie Empire Records?
Oh yeah.
So that's like one of my favorite. I mean, Almost Famous is my favorite movie.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, I mean, just the music alone is incredible. I mean, there are so few movies where there's a scene that just gives you goosebumps. But when they're on the bus and they're singing Tiny Dancer, oh my gosh! I
Yep.
mean, that is a goosebump moment. Like I'm getting them right now just talking about
Me
it.
too. It's a movie's a personal favorite. I was fairly young when that came out, and I saw it, and just like it resonated with me and made me nostalgic for feelings that I hadn't even had yet.
Yeah.
You know, and I loved that about it.
Yeah, Cameron Crowe is just amazing, and Say Anything. I mean, geez, but yeah, that movie was incredible. Anyway, but about Empire Records, um, the store that I worked at in Houston, the first store where I worked, that it had that kind of vibe. When I watch that movie, I think about that first store that I worked at because I was friends with all the people that worked there. We hung out, after work because you get off and it's 12:30 at night, but you're still kind of amped from the
Right,
evening.
and
So
everybody else is asleep, so you gotta. It's like, oh, we've been here. We might as well hang out.
right. So yeah, so we'd go out and do stuff after work and just I mean just really tight knit and just so much fun. And so when I watch that movie, that's what I think about. I think about that first store that I worked at and how much fun it was and the crazy times that we had and just I remember that I think Little Mermaid had come out not too long before. I'm trying to think. I know Beauty and the Beast came out during that time, but we would play Little Mermaid like on a constant loop on the TVs, and it was just like I knew every word to that movie.
Oh yeah.
We kept playing it over and over again. I think we wore the tape out. We must have, but yeah, I mean, just those feelings of, I mean, I was in college and just being buddies with everybody that worked there and just the good times that we had. It's pretty amazing.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you for that. Now comes to the reason I had you hold on to those quotes. Me and my buddy at work came up with a movie game.
Okay.
And we play it on lunch. We came up with a few of them, and I decided one day that I would try to turn it into a real game. And so the game is played similar in the same fashion of games like Apples to Apples or Cards Against Humanity, where you have a hand of 10 somethings. In this case, it's a hand of 10 movie quotes. And I put the movie they're from on there just, because I figure in the real game, someone's going to hear the quote and they might not remember what movie it's from. And I'd rather not have the game turn into people trying to guess that, because the fun part here is I've created a spreadsheet with a random number generator that's going to pick a movie. I have 150 movies and it's going to pick one, and we're going to do 3 rounds. And like in Cards Against Humanity or a game like that, you and I have to come up with a quote that is not from the movie that is picked by the number generator, basically, and come up with the one that we feel best fits with that movie. even though it's not the quote from that movie. So
Okay.
it's called Right Quote Wrong Movie.
All right.
And an example of this is Titanic. I think we're going to need a bigger boat. See?
Uh-huh.
Or The Passion of the Christ. If someone asks if you're a god, you say yes, from Ghostbusters. That kind of thing. So I like playing this with guests. Sometimes I do it as an icebreaker. Sometimes I do it at the end. But it's just a fun little thing. So if you'd humor me for a few minutes, we can play this silly game. Sound good to you?
Sounds great.
All right. So you have your quotes in front of you.
I do.
And I have mine. And I do not remember what yours were. I just let it randomly generate them, and then I sent them to you. But I have 3 rounds with 3 movies. And so round 1, pick a number between 3 and 145.
Let's go with 27.
27. And if you don't know the movie or neither of us, okay, The Evil Dead.
Okay.
I take it you've seen it.
Or
no
I saw
of it.
Evil Dead Part 2.
All right, perfect. Well, either way, perfect. So now you have to pick a quote that you think would either in a funny way or an ironic way or just a dumb way would go with The Evil Dead. Go for it.
Let's see. How about, what do you want me to do? Dress and drag and do the hula?
I love it. Lion King, right?
You got it.
And I've got Leave the Limbs You Lost. Those belong to me. Kill Bill.
Ah, nice.
So, what do you? And again, the real game would be played with more than one person, more than 2 people. But what do you think? Which one of our quotes do you think is better?
Oh, I like yours better.
Yeah, I was gonna say me too. So I got round 1. Okay. No. And I'm gonna let the fans, the people listening, vote too. And again, this is more just for fun. We're movie guys, right? So round 2, pick a number from 3 to 145.
Let's go 54.
Phantasm 2. Have you ever seen any of the Phantasm movies?
I have not.
All right, pick
Got
another
a lot
number.
of horror films in here.
Yeah, my buddy Fred helped me make it.
All right.
Apocalypse.
Well, 85.
Apocalypse Now.
Seen it.
All right, so go for it.
Apocalypse Now. Let's see. I'm looking. Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, see, that's perfect. The best I have is forgiveness is between them and God. It's my job to arrange the meeting. From Man on Fire.
Nice.
So which do you think? I'm leaning with you in this round. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, man. All right. Round 3. 3 to 145.
Let's go with 49.
49. Mary Poppins.
Great. Let's see. Mary Poppins. Oh, jeez. All right, Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me.
Nice. I'm going to put, because it just completely changes the connotation of Mary Poppins, and somehow I ended up with 2 quotes from Kill Bill on my list. That woman deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die.
All right, you get it.
So you get the gist of this. I could see this being a lot of fun.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to market this sometime down the road. So that's Right Quote Wrong Movie. So this has been Brett Cline. Brett Cline, right? I got that right? I'm not shutting my brain off. I'm realizing, am I just going to say the wrong name, and just ruin this day? This has been the Talkbuster Podcast. And Brett, before we sign out, is there anything you want to plug on here or mention? Is there another show you listen to on the web or a movie you've seen recently that you really like, or just something that you do that you want to tell the world about?
Jeez. Oh, so one of your quotes on here from The Matrix, I know Kung Fu, that reminded me of the TV show Chuck. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Love that show. That show is the bomb.
Well, there you go, man. So the Talkbuster Podcast and Brett Cline wants you to watch Chuck if you've never seen it. That was a great show. So thank you very much, Brett.
Sure.
And, if you ever have more stories and want to be on again, it's always
I
an
only
open-
have 1,000 more, but
Yeah,
that's
no, we could do it. I'm serious. Get in touch, of course, and especially after you listen to this, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So thank you, and thank everyone for making this a Talkbuster night or day or whenever you're listening. And please be kind, rewind.